All you Nightmare nerds, welcome to this week's episode of the Nightmare Network podcast. We have yet to decide what we're going to call it because we are approaching this conversation from a bit of a different perspective, which I think is going to be interesting. You know what? Let's do a twofer because Killian is just off of his first. It was your first watch, right? Your first completed watch.
My first complete watch.
First complete watch of Ringu, and I have seen Ringu, but it's been a while, and we had to shuffle our recording schedule because of moving and jobs. So today we're talking about The Ring and Ringu, but for Killian, it's going to be more of an RIP Reboots type episode where he talks about how interesting it is between the original and the new one and what works and what doesn't. I say new like it didn't come out like 20 years ago, but you know, you get what I'm saying. The Gore Verbinski American one. Whereas I, on the other hand, as a child, I think this might have been the first ever movie to... I must have been like 11 or 12 when it came out, to have a profound, horrific effect on me. Like, I was this is the first time I remember being absolutely terrified for days after seeing a movie, was seeing this in the theaters. So we will be talking about Gore Verbinski's The Ring versus Ringu, the OG Japanese horror. And before we get going, though, Killian, how you doing, buddy?
I'm good. Been running around like crazy, but I'm good.
It's been a week for both of us, really.
It sure as hell has.
It's been pretty stressful. I moved out of my house. I'm so tired. We did not hire movers because my ex-girlfriend, she told me that I was her little moving company. Isn't that cute?
That's so cute.
Yeah, so we didn't need to hire people to save my back or anything because, you know...
No, of course not.
No, who would want that?
No.
But yeah, so it's been a little bit of a week. I also went on vacay the week before this, so it's been a few weeks since we've videoed and seen each other's handsome faces. So this is really nice seeing you and your giant puffy microphone, which I'm always a big fan of.
Remember, it's not, the whole microphone isn't puffy. It's just the chaotic eyeball on top of it.
Right.
Which I only have on because it helps mitigate some of the loudness.
Man, no one listening cares, but I care. That's great.
I'm glad that you care.
I'm glad that it's puffy, really. Anyway, so... first of all, before we jump into The Ring, I gotta ask, because this just happened. Did you watch the Barry finale, my dude?
No.
Oh, my
So
gosh.
here's the deal. You're gonna be upset, I think, maybe?
Oh, no.
I have not watched Barry. It's on my list. Don't worry.
Wait,
but we did talk about this.
We did, okay.
Yeah, and so, of course, I haven't watched the finale because I haven't started
watched
Barry
all
yet.
of it. Sorry,
Yeah.
my brain is real mush. But anyway, sorry, you're my Yellow Jackets guy. You watch Yellow Jackets, correct? No, what?
No, it's both of them are on my list. It's I just haven't, basically over the course of late 2021 all the way through 2022, I wasn't able to watch or catch up on anything. Mostly because making a feature film.
Dude, I'm having a Berenstein Bears moment right now. I swear that we had talked about this, but I guess not. Anyway,
no.
I'll just say, Barry finale was 2 days ago. Could be the best finale of television I've ever seen in my life. Forget this Succession nonsense that people keep talking about. Barry is the best show on TV. So... I would love for you to watch Barry, especially once it gets into the later seasons where it turns into a truly horrific downward spiral. And so it's just been so crazy. And also Yellow Jackets too, because that's right up our alleys with the horror TV series. So that's great.
I'm gonna watch both of them. Don't worry. And when I do, we can have a whole episode just about Barry and Yellow Jackets.
But we will say we're going to be talking about the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Okay, I need you to know that if we ever talk about Texas Chainsaw Massacre, that's just what we're talking about.
Only Barry?
No,
Texas Chainsaw. How do you?
I love those movies.
Really? Interesting.
Yeah. I mean, the first one specifically, like, the hot take that I actually don't think is a hot take. I think it's the most effective horror movie possibly ever made.
Interesting. I've only seen it once or twice, and I remember being kind of annoyed with it when I first saw it, which I thought was a hot take at the time. So I think that might be a teaser for next season. We'll have to watch. We'll have to reassess that one because it's been a while since I've actually dived in.
Is that gonna be like my
Hunter x Hunter? We found it. That's the one. Where
I'm like, this movie fucks, and you're like, I can't get behind it.
I can't get behind it, dude. Okay, all right, yeah, that might be it. But I will give it its fair shake. It's just been a while since I've seen it, and Tobe Hooper's cool, so I'm sure it'll be fine.
Oh yeah, he's great.
So, anything else we want to ramble about before we dive right into this pod?
No, I don't think so. I think Ringu and The Ring, like, it's a lot to talk about in general. So sure. I think let's just get to it.
I'm excited. So let's start off with let's start off with The Ring specifically, because even though Ringu came out first, I feel like a lot of American audiences specifically were first introduced to this story through Gore Verbinski's The Ring. So, do you remember the first time that you saw this movie and how it made you feel?
Yes. Shit, what was I? I was probably 11, 12 when I first saw The Ring, like Gore Verbinski's The Ring. Specifically, I think I watched it with my mother.
Nice.
I think that was like one of the first horror movies that we watched together.
Yeah.
And a lot of it didn't scare me super bad. When I was a kid, the couple of things that scared me more than anything in that movie was the shot of the girl in the closet.
Yep.
I saw her face jump scare.
Yep.
And then actually the tape itself in the American version, when I was a child, scared me. Now as an adult, it doesn't.
It's kind of comical, honestly.
Yes. Which is fun because that is a stark contrast to the tape in Ringu, which is just spooky.
Yeah, I do recall it being very spooky. Again, that one time I saw it a while ago. So, it's funny about that tape because, like, I think this movie was interesting in the fact that when it came out, it was like 2002, and for our generation, it was like we had access to a PG-13 horror movie that was top tier and scary as hell, which, if that's not a very easy thing to do with a PG-13 rating, obviously. It's a bit of a faux pas, if you will. But it's very interesting, like, because you had Gore Verbinski, who obviously went on to do, like, Pirates and stuff, who was this, I would consider an A-list filmmaker at this point. If he's getting titles, they're probably up there. You have him attacking what I can only kind of describe as a bit of an A-list horror movie, because you have Naomi Watts in there too. You have a good cast, a good production value.
Oh yeah.
And I think it's interesting to have that kind of access at a PG-13 rating at that time was very, very cool and interesting, and I feel like had a lot of profound effects on people of our generation. And while you're watching that tape, I remember being spooked out of the tape because I think part of it was like I was afraid to find that tape and watch it and like know what it is if I came across it in real life, right?
Yeah, totally.
But when you watch it now, especially, I don't know if we're just like curmudgeon filmmakers, but when you watch it now, you're like, man, this really is some fucking kid's experimental short that he shot in college. And I think like the perfect, like, say what you want about the scary movie movies, because they're mostly pretty bad, but like in the third one, the way that they attack that tape is hilarious and spot on. Like that's one of the jokes that they absolutely nail is the tape because they turn it into a complete farce. Yeah,
well, the thing for me in regards to the tape is in the American version of it, it suffers from things that came after.
Yeah.
A lot of things after the movie was done tried to ape that style, I feel.
Yeah.
And so we got a lot of things, like even down to like Marble Hornets doing like To the Ark.
Yeah.
Like a lot of those videos and stuff like that. A lot of like YouTube creators trying to do like edgy, spooky horror parroted the tape from Gore Verbinski's The Ring. And I think that now, as we've grown older, we associate that sort of like super weird, edgy, like begotten style filmmaking with people, as you just said, making their student films and trying to be super cool, whereas the Japanese Ringu, it is just surreal and weird, and they don't dwell on it too long. It's just like a couple of things, and you're like, ah.
Yeah, I do remember having that reaction the first time I did see the Ringu, like, because I was so used to the tape from The Ring, being a horror staple of my childhood, that like going back and finding out where it came from was even itself like interesting to see, like how he wanted to differentiate from that original tape.
Yeah.
But also, real quick before we proceed, don't be talking smack about no Marble Hornets, dog, because Marble Hornets
own season 1 and 2 on DVD.
That's awesome.
Yeah, don't, like, if anybody can talk smack about Marble Hornets, it is me. I love seasons 1 and 2 of Marble Hornets, and I think that if they had ended the series there, it would have gone down in history as one of the greatest found footage series of all time. Instead, they did 2 more seasons.
How does 2 end? Like, what's the last thing you've seen 2? Because I watched them on YouTube, so I just, like, I don't know what season breaks are. I just watched them straight through.
Season 2 is all the stuff at the hotel.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And that stuff. And so, like, the girl that he's been traveling around with disappears.
Yes. Yep.
And then, like, he takes off from the hotel because the operator shows up. That big, like, climax at the hotel is the last bit of season 2.
Got you. Okay. Yeah, so the thing about Marble Hornets is I agree with you, but also the movie is the worst thing ever. So I'll take seasons
always
3
watching.
and 4. Yeah, always watching. I'll take seasons 3 and 4 over always watching, like,
fair
anytime. Because at least, like, the cool thing about Marble Hornets is this is something that I feel is a staple to found footage. That if you make a good found footage movie, it has to include the fact that, like, man, I could have made that. Like, and not to say that, like, we, like, the average person could go out and make a found footage horror movie. It needs to feel emotionally like,
yeah.
anybody that person is a random person who picked up a camera and captured
just some
captured
schmo
what
with
happened.
a camera.
Yes. Marble Hornets feels like that. And I think that like what makes those first two seasons magical is like you almost get like way too much information about who these people are and what's going on in 3 and 4 that it kind of really disenchants you. But those first two, like, they're still, and even this is funny because if like Roger Ebert even references Marble Hornets in one, I forget which found footage, like one of his reviews that he did. It might have been for Paranormal Activity, but he's even like Marble Hornets is like doing it right. Like he had it tickles my fancy to think that Roger Ebert had at one point of his time watched like all of Marble Hornets and had very intense film theory about it. Like that tickles my fancy.
He's like watching season 1 and he's like, this is good. Season 1 is the best part of Marble Hornets. That's all the stuff up until like he goes and I'm out of tapes and now like, and then it like that whole thing when it like he gets that final box and it's and, like his house burns down. That's the end of season 1.
I do remember looking up that's where 1 ended because then, I remember that. And man, we're really good at talking about other things as opposed to what we're
I was literally just thinking, I was like, hey guys, welcome to the Ring episode where we talk about Marble Hornets for 10 minutes.
I don't care. Marble Hornets fucking rips up to a point, and then it doesn't rip as much. But it's like for found footage for me, it's like it's the way I'm a huge found footage nerd, and I just love watching shitty and great found footage movies alike to find out which ones like push that specific button of making me believe that this is really happening. And Marble Hornets, being kind of one of those Paramount YouTube kind of series that were coming out, especially with like To the Ark and that other kind of channel that was going along with it, like 10 out of 10. Like, yes. So good. Anyway, back to the Ring. So for me, seeing this the first time, this is a great story. I promise. You always need to preface great stories with this is a great story. So back in 2002, I didn't go to school on a Friday. I don't know why. And me and my dad went to go see The Ring in theaters. This movie, as I've said before, scared the ever-loving absolute shit out of me. Like, I was terrified. We'll talk about that first sequence in a little bit, because I think that's such an incredible part of this movie, and to this day scares the poo out of me. But we go to see this movie. It's terrifying. I remember, like, shaking when I was walking out of the theater because I was so scared. And I go, and I remember having that feeling of just dread and terrifiedness for 3 days afterwards, like absolutely shaking in my boots. So next Friday comes along, and it is now summer vacation. And my dad turns to me and says, "Do you want to go see The Ring again in theaters?" And I said, "Hell yeah." And we went to go see The Ring 1 week after we had seen it the first time in theaters, and to this day, I think that's pretty badass. And kind of bummed that I didn't die that day when a giant Samara comes out of the movie screen and just wrecks the entire audience. But yeah, because I think the other thing about this movie that really, really, really terrified me was that obviously, we love movies, and I loved my VHSs as a kid. So I had this copy of Tremors on VHS that was my favorite thing ever, and I would just pop Tremors in, watch it all the time, and we had a huge VHS collection. And at night, I used to like to fall asleep to movies. And so I would like to put in a VHS and fall asleep while the movie was on. This movie, similar to how 13 Ghosts Bloody Woman ruined my bath time safe place. This movie ruined my I like to fall asleep to VHS tapes safe place. And for that, I will never forgive Gore Verbinski.
Hey, Gore Verbinski, thank you so much.
Thanks for ruining Mike's life. We really appreciate it.
It was everything I could hope for.
That's rude.
But yeah, so you had this great like awakening with The Ring. And The Ring is the one that you've seen the most recently, yes?
Yeah, I've seen the Gore Verbinski one like a dozen times probably over my life, and this is also kind of ironic, is that I remember getting a DVD of The Ring after the movie came out, and so like even in the early 2000s there was this wild transition of like VHS tape to movie theater to DVD about a movie about a killer VHS tape, and I'm over here like I feel like we skipped something. Yeah. It's like steel underpants question mark profit. Like I don't know what the question mark is, but I feel like that should have been there should to this day be like 20 to 25th anniversary. I guess it would be 25th coming up soon. Like a 25th anniversary VHS copy of The Ring. Like that would be sick.
Yes, but also the last company that makes VHS players stopped making VHS players a couple years ago.
We don't need to watch it on VHS. I just need to know that it's there. You know what I mean?
Oh, okay. You can get one custom made then.
No, I want a special one. I want to feel special with my special VHS tape.
Okay. Yes, dear.
Sorry.
So, okay, let's start by talking about the Gore Verbinski one, which I think when it comes to American remakes of foreign properties is the poster child for the perfect American remake.
Agreed.
With the exception, there's only one other one that I would consider, but also at the same time, it's by the same director, which is Funny Games.
Oh, Michael Haneke? Yeah.
Yeah, because Funny Games, also with Naomi Watts, is, I think the American version is the better of the two, but that's literally just because they took the same director and gave him money and an A-list cast and went, honestly, just here. And he goes, got it, cool.
And honestly, they are both just as almost insufferable to watch as the other one is. I mean that in, I guess, a positive way. I don't know. You can't come around here and tell me, like, you're supposed to watch Funny Games and be entertained by it. Like, it is a psychological warfare experiment on the audience, challenging them to turn off this movie. And if you win, then you get something. I don't know what it is.
If you win, then you've turned off the movie.
Exactly. You win if you turn off the movie. So...
and I've never won.
I've never won this movie.
But yeah, so let's talk about Gore Verbinski's The Ring before we get into Ringu.
So, okay, so I want to talk about that first scene, because... Hell yeah. Because that first scene is expertly crafted and absolutely effing terrifying. And I think part of it is... we're the movie starts with no credits, right? Like we go right into that scene. And so it immediately puts us like at this slumber party with these two girls. And like, it feels very like, it feels very natural. It feels like what we would be partaking in at any one of our slumber parties, right? Like there's silly discussions versus this like, I double dare you kind of tape, or go in the bathroom and say Bloody Mary 3 times and turn around and turn the lights off, right? Like it immediately puts us seamlessly, not through any not through any formal credits or anything. We're immediately dropped into this relationship, into this atmosphere that we are very familiar with, that turns into a nightmare as quickly as possible. But still, like, dude, I don't know. It's just so terrifying, and it gives me, like, I've had sleepovers like that, and I think that The Ring may have also ruined all of my sleepovers, because I think probably after this I was too scared to have sleepovers because I didn't want to do any more urban legendy type things and end up dead in a closet.
Fair. So coming in hot after rewatching Ringu.
Yeah.
I mean, when we say that, we mean that I was on the train back home and finished Ringu probably about 20 minutes before we started the call. So
So you are literally, like, you're like, actually, the credits are rolling right now. And
Yeah. It's so it's like I'm hot off of Ringu.
You're hot, period, off of Ringu.
Oh, thank you. So Ringu is wild because when even just comparing these two initially, the level of artistry in the direction of these two films is insane. Like the difference, because Gore Verbinski is like masterfully crafting these like beautiful these beautiful scares, and it's so tense and awful the entire time. And then you get the Japanese one, which very much akin to a lot of like Japanese horror of the early 2000s or late 90s, early 2000s, is a lot more stark by comparison.
Yes. So I tend to remember. So one of the things I love about Gore Verbinski is, like, you're absolutely right. These are like beautifully, expertly crafted, horrifying shots. And I remember the latter shots, or like in that barn too, specifically, and where they reach up and then you find that like blood tree in the walls and stuff, like beautiful, intricate shots where he's mixing like warm, violent colors with this stark blue outside, and it's just it's gorgeously horrifying.
Yes.
I seem to recall...
It's painterly in a lot of ways.
Yes, that is a great word for it. I seem to recall Ringu being very, like, Office-like. like, which I think is kind of... The interesting part of that movie is how kind of bland and vanilla it is up until that last scare. That, I mean, there are obviously parts throughout it that are scary, but, like, it's really a build-up to that final scene, that final TV scene. And I felt that way watching it.
Yes. I mean, overall, I'm going to say it here, and then we can just sort of, like, extrapolate from this. I think, having watched now both The Ring and Ringu relatively recently with The Ring, I prefer The Ring to Ringu, which isn't a hot take. Like, a lot of people are like, no, he kind of crushed it.
Knocked it out of the park.
The one big takeaway that I would have is I do wish that they had kept more of the feel of the original cursed tape, because the cursed tape in Ringu is, to me, way more haunting.
Yes.
Because it legitimately feels like it's just like a couple of random shots that feel like it is telling you something. And you're like, what are you trying to tell me? What are you trying to tell me? And then it's just that shot of the well and like her coming up, and you're like, no.
Yep. That is a good point. I do feel like there's a bit of a disconnect between what that tape is in the remake versus like what it is in the OG one. Like, I feel like the tape factor in Gore Verbinski's is like, this is creepy, and we're going to give you maybe one clue. Whereas I feel like the tape in the first one is almost like a confessional about what happened. Correct me if I'm wrong, because it's been a while, but
the tape in Ringu is like, that's where they get almost all of their information.
Yes.
They just keep going back to the tape, and like they're like finding stuff and then extrapolating from that information in the tape to find the other clues.
Yes.
Which does happen as well in Gore Verbinski's The Ring, but it's like, it takes him a little bit more of like extrapolating rather than just being like, okay, this says like this woman is like very clear, like we can track this woman, and like this is a thing, and this is, and then like around here, there's a moment where it says eruption.
Yeah.
And they're like, okay, what erupted? And then they're like able to track. And then they were like,
Eddie Van Halen played Eruption. So, yeah.
But they're like able to track like the woman to a specific town from the eruption of a volcano.
Right,
that,
and
like the video is talking about due to this, and it's like wow, you got so much information just from this fucking tape. There's like 5 shots in this tape, and all of them are important to the story. Whether and then you get like Gore Verbinski's one where it's like, oh, here's a chair spinning and a giant centipede, and somebody lost a fingernail.
Yeah. But it is interesting because they get their information from in a different way in the Verbinski one, obviously. But where I think the Gore Verbinski one excels is
being scary.
Is one, being scary. But number 2, how much it does kind of feel like a detective movie in a way. Like it feels like a horror detective movie, and that you get to follow this character in this, like, it's not just about scares, it's about like delving through this mystery that's very in depth, especially with the information that's being conveyed to you. It starts with her niece, right? Was that her niece? I think, yeah, it starts with her niece. And then it evolves into her searching through photographs to find where they were staying, to investigating the video libraries of the resort that they were staying, to going on this island to figuring out who was making this tape. And I feel like this movie, the Verbinski movie, is way more successful in diving into that mystery than Ringu was.
I agree. It's because both of them are detective stories, because they're both based off of the manga. It's either a manga or a novel.
Yeah, it's a novel. I've read the first novel. I need to so real quick before we keep going. Do you have any idea that there's like sequels to these novels, and in them you find out that everything is like a simulation or some shit? Like, I kid you, I tried to read them and I was like, this is wild. I need to revisit this later. But like, there's like the Ring. There's like the first one, Ringu, which is like kind of the story that you're reading in the movies, and then there's like 2 sequels, and then the third one you find out that everybody is in a simulation.
Talk about a weird fucking, like...
yeah.
Boo.
You're like, maybe just read the first one, guy. Like, I'm imagining the book sequels are just as bad as the actual movie sequels, because they are all awful.
Both Ringu and The Ring are both, like, detective stories.
Yeah.
And that's actually my favorite thing about comparing the two, because they both do such a good job at letting you follow along. I think the big difference, and this is a big thing for Gore Verbinski's The Ring, is in Ringu, her ex-husband, who is helping her, is like, they just drop in that it's like, oh, he's also a psychic.
Oh yeah, I remember this.
And that's how he's able to get some of this information, versus them just like, oh, we just have to like find a way in reality to get them this information,
right.
Which I prefer that to like, and he's a psychic, and it's like, oh, come on.
Right. No, he's a psychic. Everything's fine.
So I loved that. The one thing that I wish, and I think Gore did a better job at it a little bit than the original director of Ringu, but the one thing that I wish that they did better was seeding the idea that you have to copy and pass
Yes.
along the tape.
Yes.
So that as an audience, you could draw that conclusion before they tell you in the movie. I think that would be like truly one of the best moments, is if there's that moment where you're watching it and you're like she starts to come out of the thing and you're like, why didn't it work? And you're like, oh my God, you have to pass it along. Like, that's why it didn't take her, because she had already done that.
Right.
Like, her clock ended like 3 days in.
Right. So who are you saying did a bad? Which one do you think did a poor job of this?
I think Gore Verbinski did a better job at
I agree.
it.
I agree, because though there is like an aha moment towards the end, right, and you get that while it's about to come out and kill her husband or ex-husband. I think you can I think you can piece that together a little bit from what you're watching versus Ringu.
In Ringu, she's holding both tapes, the original and the one that says copy, and she's sitting there after he dies, and she goes, why did it work for me and not for you? Why, like, I thought we solved this. What's the difference? And then his ghost appears behind her, reflected in the television, pointing at her purse, and she pulls it out, and it's a thing that says copy, and she's like, looking at, she's like, what? And then you hear a soundbite that I don't remember hearing from earlier in the movie, which means that they, like Arthur Conan Doyle Sherlock Holmes does, where, like, they just withheld an important piece of the mystery so that, like, at the right moment they could tell you and give you the aha moment, as opposed to just letting you discover it.
Listen, that's just good storytelling right there.
And there's like an interview that she's doing with some girls early in the movie in Ringu, and they're talking about this like story of this cursed videotape, and she closes her eyes, and you hear this girl's voice go like, and you have to copy the tape and pass it along, otherwise you'll die. And I'm like,
I mean, it's true. You'll die. I mean, she's just giving you information. I don't know what the problem is here.
But yeah, so that's like, I think if I remember right, the Gore Verbinski one, it ultimately ends up being said kind of by her kid.
Yeah.
Who's like, she's just angry. You can't solve it. You just have to pass it along.
Yeah. So, yes. At least that one's like happening in the moment with a character who's alive in front of you and not a weird soundbite ghost from behind you giving you awkward information from something else. But it's also like, I think it's super like, I can't remember. Does she find out that it needs to be copied before he gets killed, or does it take after for her to have the tape, like his tape? You know what I mean?
I don't remember in the American one. I do know that in Ringu he has to die first.
Yeah, because if she figures that out beforehand, I mean, again, I could be making up a new movie right now, but if she figures that out beforehand, that gives a much more ticking clock / emotional stakes if she's rushing over there because she knows he needs to make a copy, right? And
wait a minute. I think if I remember right, I could be wrong.
We could be making up a new movie,
but
which we love doing here.
Yes. I think she realizes what has to happen, and it does that, like the intercutting thing.
Yes, yeah.
Where she's on her way over.
Yes. While it's happening.
And Samara's crawling out of the
TV.
The TV, and it's just like, oh, and then she opens the door, and he's like, bleh.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, man, you're like probably 35 seconds too late. Like, that sucks.
Dude, can I just say that I swear to God, this is really happening right now. Ever since you've joined this Zoom call, the video has been whacked out of its mind. Like,
oh, yeah, no, I'm seeing it as well.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
Well, because it's not my normal camera. I had to take that to go do a thing, so this is like a crappy...
Did you watch a cursed tape 7 days ago, you cheeky bastard?
No, 6.5.
Okay, we still have time.
Yeah.
So two things I want to talk about before, doing whatever we do. The first is, so I can't recall their names in the Japanese versions, which makes me a horrible American, and I know that. But do you know that there is a Samara versus whatever?
It's Sadako versus Kayako.
That one.
Yes, and it's awful.
Yeah. Like,
I need to see it again.
But I want to watch it, but I feel like I need to do Just Desserts and watch all like 9 movies before that happens, like the 4 Grudges and 5 Rings or whatever. But man, like there is one Versus movie that really gave me what I was looking for, and I think it is an unsung masterpiece. Do you know what this Versus movie is?
Is it Godzilla Vs Kong?
It is not. That one was okay, but.
Okay, no, that movie's a masterpiece. It's dumb. It's the biggest, dumbest movie ever made.
Have we ever talked about that? Like, the whole reason I like movies is Godzilla. Like, have we had that conversation?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah, so for sure, I will watch anything that has Godzilla in it, like for sure. And I'm not saying I didn't like that movie. Like, it was good, and I had a great time. The best Versus movie is Freddy versus Jason.
Oh, without a doubt, it's Freddy versus Jason.
Yes.
But Godzilla v Kong is the biggest, dumbest movie ever made.
I will agree. I will concede that to you. But dude, like Freddy versus Jason, that movie just absolutely gives me every fucking thing that I want in both of those movies pressed together. And at one point, you get to watch a peyoteed out Freddy Krueger as a like weed worm from Alice in Wonderland, like jump down some stoner's throat, and like that to me is pure cinema.
Jay.
Not Jay.
With his friend, not Silent Bob.
With his name, not right. So yeah, that movie's friggin' incredible. And man, if like, how has no one else taken better like a page out of that book? You know what I mean?
Okay, so here's the deal.
Okay,
and I think I might be able to explain this perfectly. It is because both of those movie franchises had become their sequels more than they had become what they actually were.
Yes.
If you know what I mean.
Yes.
Like, Nightmare on Elm Street is a legitimately good slasher film.
I can't say the same about Friday the 13th.
I can't say the same about Friday the 13th. It is just a Halloween ripoff.
They get better though, I think.
Oh, well, Friday the 13th Part 4 is the best Friday the 13th movie.
That's the one with
Corey Feldman.
Corey Feldman. And Crispin Glover is in that too.
Yep, it is the best Friday the 13th movie, without a doubt. However, but that goes to say that like Nightmare on Elm Street by itself, great. Friday the 13th by itself, okay. But what is it that you hear people talk? People don't talk about Nightmare on Elm Street 1 as much as they talk about Part 2 or Part 3, Dream Warriors.
Dream Warriors, right, which slaps.
And people don't talk about Friday the 13th. They talk about Final Chapter. They talk about Takes Manhattan. They talk about like these crazy
Jason
other ones.
X.
Jason X. And so by that point in their series, their respective series, those movies had become their sequels and not their original IP.
Right.
And the sequels had done the like heightening bit every time.
Yep.
And so you just had these two fundamentally fucked franchises just going head to head with these two characters that are larger than life trying to like duke it out for supremacy. And so you would need something like that for it to work the same way. So it would have to be like
Fast and the Furious versus like
Transformers.
Yes. Yo, how is that? How has that not happened?
Because people don't listen to me.
That's genius. Put Dom in Bumblebee, and you would make $8 billion. I'm not even kidding. That movie would make so much money.
It would be gross.
That's insane, and they're like perfectly fit for each other.
Yep, and you keep Jason Momoa as the villain.
Jeez.
Apparently, everybody is saying that Jason Momoa is the villain that the series has needed all along. Okay. Because apparently he is just going full Disney villain
I love that.
People are like, yes, this is what we've needed the whole time. He is just flamboyant, and like they're like, he's going like Joel Schumacher Batman villain.
Oh, that's incredible.
And they're like, that's what we've needed. And I'm like, I don't watch the movies, but I agree.
Dude, honestly, I don't watch them either, but there's only one reason why I kind of want to see the new one, and that's because no, it's because Alan Ritchson is in it, and I fucking love him.
Okay.
Do you know who he is?
No.
You ever see Blue Mountain State? All right, dude, like number one list of shows that you need to watch immediately is Blue Mountain State. Like that goes to the fucking top. Blue Mountain State is it's like it's about a football team, but that's not what it's about at all. It's more like Animal House in like the mid 2010s or the early 2010s, and it's just like all of these over the top stereotypes being like super like bro and drugs and sex and awful and dumb people. And there's 3 seasons. Alan Ritchson, who also plays Reacher in the Jack Reacher in the Reacher show.
Okay.
Yeah, he plays Thad Castle, the greatest character ever put to television in the history of television. I swear. It is amazing because there are 3 seasons of this show, and here I've made my ex-girlfriend watch it. I've made everybody watch it. Here's how it goes. By the time season 1 ends, you're like, this show is so fucking stupid. Why do I love it? And then by the time the end of season 2 happens, you're like, why do I care about every single character on this stupid fucking show? And then by the time season 3 is over, you are crying because they're ending this show about your favorite characters. Like,
I'll give it a shot.
Yeah, it's incredible, and it's stupid, and like you're gonna think it's stupid initially, but like I promise you, just keep going. Like it is so rewarding. But anyway,
love stupid shit all the time.
Yeah.
Freddy vs. Jason is one of my favorite movies.
Yeah, watch it on Tubi. It's free on Tubi.
Okay.
Or Vudu. Don't watch it on Amazon because they edit stuff out and it's weird. So don't watch that. But
so anyway, Kayako and Sadako, and it's Kayako is the Grudge, Sadako is the girl from The Ring. She's Samara, also, fun fact, I'm definitely way more of a Grudge guy than I am a Ring guy.
Okay, we'll have to add that to the
original Ju-on. Like Ju-on the Grudge, not Ju-on White Ghost, which is technically the first Grudge movie, but like, hey guys, you can skip it. It was made for TV. It was bad.
So not that one.
No, Ju-on the Grudge is one of the first movies that I watched that like changed me as a person.
Okay.
It ended, and I was like, I've never in my life been this scared.
Okay, I'll definitely check it out. I do remember Bill Pullman jumping to his death in the first American one, so I'll have to. I've never seen the OG Ju-on, so I will watch that.
That's a great example of a movie that is directed by the original director for an American audience and loses all of what makes it good.
Gotcha. So, all right, well, we've rambled about other things for long enough. There's one last question I want to wrap up the discussion with, which I think is going to be a fun one. So, the whole thing, I think an interesting takeaway from this movie about what makes it scary is this idea of an urban legend.
Yes.
Right? And that's something that you share in those sleepovers late at night when you're in the bathroom and you're saying Bloody Mary into the mirror, right? Did you have an urban legend that was specific to you back in the day? Was there anything? I'll go first. There's one on top of my head that I remember.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, so I grew up in South Jersey, right outside of Philadelphia, and we had the Atco ghost. And there was a street in Atco, which is like down in the middle of nowhere. And if you drive down the street, you park, you turn your lights off, and you honk 3 times, you can see the ghost of a boy who was hit on that road dribbling a basketball. Now, if you were to ask me, why is this kid dribbling a basketball in the middle of nowhere with no basketball court around? I wouldn't be able to tell you. But That's a real big one around us, is the Atco ghost.
Huh. Spooky.
Spooky.
I guess the one that would work the best for me would probably be the Bartonville Insane Asylum.
Okay.
Which was one of the last places in the United States that you could go to get lobotomy before it closed down. So, like, you know,
Just
great
like
place.
Blockbuster.
Yep. I mean, they turned it into a blockbuster. No, just kidding. But it's one of the like one of the most haunted places in Illinois. They've actually torn it down by now, but like they did like ghost tours of it and stuff like that.
That's cool.
It had its own cemetery that was across the street, and they actually had to home the bodies after a while because people were like desecrating all the graves. Because that's what you want. You want angry lunatic asylum ghosts.
Sure.
But if you had gone over beforehand, you would see that like at a certain point, at least one person died per day for like 50 years.
Wow.
It was a bad place to be, and it was because Dr. Zeller, was a visionary, I suppose, and he was trying to find new and incredibly like game-changing ways of helping mental patients.
Yeah.
And he thought that anything that would drive a sane person insane could drive an insane person sane. And so they did some crazy inhumane shit there. All in the drive to make people better. And it didn't work because that's not how people work. And it became super, super haunted, and it was a thing for like years after it closed down. They're like, hey, if you want to see some shit, you go to the insane asylum in the middle of the night, and you'll see and hear shit. It's fucking scary. And I went there at one point.
Did you see or hear shit?
I personally did not see anything. I did hear some shit. One of my other friends saw some stuff that like changed his life a little bit because he didn't believe in ghosts at all, and then he saw a bunch of shit, and he was like he wandered away to have a smoke, and he comes back like 10 minutes later, and he's white as a sheet. And I was like, hey man, what's up? And the way it was built like a big horseshoe.
Yeah.
And so he had apparently gone to like the courtyard area.
Okay. Yeah.
And he looks at me just white as a sheet, and he goes, they were looking at me. And I was
Jesus.
like, what? And he goes, they were looking at me. All of them were looking at me. And I was just like, all right.
Now it's time to go.
We gotta leave.
Dude,
so
that's man, some grave encounter shit right there.
Yeah. Speaking of grave encounters, if you want to see a movie that is grave encounters but better, Gunjam Haunted Asylum.
Dude, no, okay, number one, fuck you, because Grave Encounters is great. Grave Encounters 2 is even better. Gunjam Haunted Asylum is the best found footage movie to come out since The Blair Witch. It's fucking
so
incredible.
good.
It's so good. It is so
Gunjam
good.
but better.
It's Gunjam but better.
Or sorry, it is.
No,
Grave
you said
Encounters, but
it
better.
right. Grave Encounters is Gunjam but better. You said it right.
I'll kill you.
All right, this is cool. We should do more urban legendy stuff because I really like those discussions. And I've wanted to. There's this place right here called Penhurst Asylum. That's like one of those awful asylum places.
Ooh, I'd go with you.
Yeah, there's two things you can do. Number one, every Halloween they turn it into a haunted house, and it's one of the best haunted houses in the country. So if you want to come down to check out this haunted house with me, that'd be cool. Ooh. You can also book through them like a paranormal. Like you can pay money to like stay overnight there, and you can bring your own. You can bring your own equipment and just do whatever you want.
Can we have a paranormal date night?
Yes, absolutely, we can. Okay, guys, so that's what's going to be going on in the future for Nightmare Network. A little paranormal date night. Oh,
also, before we go, one really important thing to talk about the end of Ringu versus the end of The Ring.
Okay, go for it.
Which I really love the end of Ringu. The end is so fucking bleak. So she drops her kid off with her father.
Yep.
About halfway through the movie. And you spend the last half of the movie just with her and her ex-husband. And then he dies, and she has that realization. And she takes the VCR and the tape, and she puts it in her car. And she's driving, and she calls her dad.
Yeah.
And she goes, "Hey, I have a favor to ask. It's for Yoshi, who's her son."
Yeah. Yep.
She goes, "It's for Yoshi." And that's all you hear. And then she drives off sort of into the thing, and you see like the clouds are getting darker.
Yep.
It's this sort of and I love it because without them showing you exactly what's about to happen.
Yep.
Is she's about to have Yoshi show Grandpa
the movie,
this cursed ass video, and they're about to lose Grandpapa.
I mean, he's old. He's up there.
And there's something that's so bleak about like, I'll do this for my son. I'll kill my own father for my son.
Versus,
for sure. I'm gonna just like put a cursed videotape back at Blockbuster.
Right. Yeah. and we're wondering why Blockbuster went out of business.
Yeah, it's
all those damn cursed tapes that have been
because that is kind of what they did at the end of The Ring. She just puts it like
no, she does, and that leads into
Blockbuster.
Into the shitty sequel. That's like it starts with them like this guy going out with this girl, and this girl's like, "Oh my god, I thought he was out of my league and stuff," and then you realize they were only dating because he saw the tape, and so I think obviously the implication is that it's out there forever now because of them, right?
Yeah.
Because she let her loose, right? So, yeah, super effed up endings. But we are pressed up against it for time right now, my friend.
Yes.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a copy of this podcast and return it to Blockbuster.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah, and see how that goes. Goodbye, everybody. Have a great thing.
Confirm your kill.
Confirm your fucking kill. Goodbye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to Season 3 of Nightmare Network. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and keep an eye on all of our socials for special announcements and videos. Remember, here at Nightmare Network, you share your scares.